What happens when Hollywood meets military reality? As someone who spent a few years in the Army in combat arms, I've seen firsthand what's accurate and what's way off when it comes to military portrayal in games and films. So today we're diving into Noobifier's take on Squadron 42 to see how it stacks up. But given that he's served for 30 years in the Canadian military, I doubt I'll be disagreeing with many of his points. I'm excited to react to Noobifier's latest video, where he gives us a veteran's perspective on Squadron 42. I've always appreciated his videos and how he's concise and to the point in his communication. Now, a little bit about me: I've served as an M1A2 Abrams crewman for the last 5 years, and even seen a very uneventful deployment in Southwest Asia. And along the way, I've seen just how much realism makes a difference in military stories. From rank structure and command respect to the heat of battle, Noobifier brings up some great points, and I'll be adding my own take as we go along. So let's jump right into it.
YouTubers, this is the Noobifier. I'm going to preface the entire video. Any thoughts or comments expressed in this video are just that, thoughts and comments. As a person who saw this demo first person at Manchester, it was clear that there has been what was promised last year, which is polish. There was more than 1 year's worth of polish on display, so I am and I will continue to be a Star Citizen #1 fan. I cannot wait to play Squadron 42 despite the first act being basically spoiled, and of course, the release date. Trust me, the entirety of my entire criticism is just a sliver from a whole. The dialogue on the whole makes sense. The characters mostly say and mostly behave exactly how you'd expect them based on the situation. And as a viewer to the channel, I welcome you to your own thoughts about my thoughts. Tell me what you're thinking, but can you please maintain a semblance of decorum in the comments section? Please and thank you. We begin. My own background is relevant to the video. I became a member of the Canadian Army in 1992, and I remained there until 2022. When watching any science fiction, action, or military
30 years in the Canadian Army. That's really impressive. Really, really impressive.
Movie with anyone who is or has spent time in service, there's usually a periodic mumble, rumble, seat adjustment, or even a comment. And if you don't believe me, try watching Platoon.
There's... That's such an understatement. Anytime I have ever watched like a military show or a movie that didn't have like a military consultant to like kind of tell the directors like what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right when it comes to military portrayal in films, it's interesting to hear people's comments that are veterans, especially, or currently still in service. But they're very vocal about it. Obviously, you know, I'm very vocal about it too when I notice these things, and my wife will kind of just be like, look at me and go like, what are you scoffing about? I'm just like, that wasn't right. That was completely off base. That was completely an inaccurate portrayal of what would happen in the real military. But it's one of those things. It's funny when you notice it, and you just can't get past it sometimes. Sometimes it ruins like a lot of films or shows for people that would have otherwise watched it if they didn't appreciate something.
Or Full Metal Jacket with an infantryman or woman. Try watching Fury, the Beast, or hell, for that matter, try watching the third act of Rambo Part 3 with an armored crewman. You know that scene where Rambo is the only person in a Russian T-72 tank, driving, gunning, and everything from one chair.
Can't do that. Sorry. I hate to break it to you. You could gun without any issues, no problem. That you could definitely take out some tanks by gunning yourself because it's an autoloader. But if you're in an Abrams, for example, good luck loading the round, hopping in the tank commander's seat, and then firing a round without getting yourself killed. So, more power to you, but good luck.
Soldiers can smell when something's off. Stolen Valor is sometimes on the news, and as a soldier, it's actually super easy to detect it. You can see their headdress is off, their pants are bloused improperly, they may not be wearing the right t-shirt, their ribbons don't match their age, or other things on the uniform. Where did you go to basic? What's your trade? When did you join? The house of cards starts to fall, and the bullshit is on full display. There are...
That's so true. A lot of service members can literally spot them from a mile away. Either there's too many decorations based on how much time in service they've had or what they've seen, quote unquote. But God, those are always funny. Those are always hilarious to watch. Just how people try to sell that they served when they didn't. And come on, guys. If you haven't, don't act like you have. It does everyone else a disservice, regardless of the country. Whether you're Canadian Army or US Army or whatever. It does them a disservice. You're taking away from their sacrifice, in my opinion. But anyway.
Are rules and protocol to follow, but there is culture, and this culture becomes how you dress, how you speak, and over time, somewhat how you think. Small things like the weather don't bother you anymore, but witnessing insubordination, bucking, or disrespect really does strike a nerve. And I suppose my point here is that there's a continuity in the profession of arms. Don't worry, I'm going to end on a specific point to the narrative within Squadron 42. Soldiers always operate within a rank structure and respect is commanded by its leaders. There are a lot of different ways to lead, which is called your leadership style. Some leaders are dead serious all the time and others operate with a twang of sarcasm to break the tension, but they all always switch on when the time comes. When watching Squadron 42, I noticed some actions or narrative that were just a little bit off, things that wouldn't be said and things that wouldn't have been accepted, things that would have landed a person in the brig regardless of the situation. Movies and games of this caliber usually have a person on staff who advises or coaches. Full Metal Jacket is a classic example where Arlie Emmy was hired as a military advisor, but he was so good that they fired the other guy and made him the drill sergeant for the movie. It was estimated that over 75% of his dialogue was actually unscripted, and it is 100% believable because, as I said, it's hard to fake being a soldier. Command may
100%. Arlie Ermy had the best portrayal of a drill sergeant in any film, hands down. And it's because he was a drill instructor at one point in his life and one point in his career. So he did that very well, as he clearly showed. That was definitely a very impressive improv movie for him, where he just said things off the cuff. And drill instructors, drill sergeants, they have those off-the-cuff comments that just come out of left field, and they're almost comical in many ways.
be given to an individual, but it's up to that individual to foster, preserve, and keep it. There's a constant in service that the leader never releases control, and the leader never allows those under their command to undermine their command or take it from them. So let's break down the demo. Right at the start, I love the intro with Henry Cavill. It was a little bit campy and made me think very much of the recruiting videos that you might see in World War II. Also, all of the radio banter back and forth sounded great. What's your sit rep is exactly how someone asks another, how are you doing, over the radio. You, the main character, are recording a short message before the big battle. Captain McLaren sneaks up behind the corporal and comments on something about the view. The corporal snaps to attention, and in general, all of this interaction works very well. The banter back and forth between you and your captain is good, and she never breaks character. A good leader knows their troops, even if there are hundreds of them. She offers encouragement to you, the corporal, before your second application to flight training. You move on and make your way to the turrets. The other turret gunners razz your character for not having your helmet. You guys are all the same rank. You'd probably tell them to F off, but it sounds like you're pretty new to this group, so it's fine. You would let it slide. There's a general...
So generally speaking, if you're like new to a unit or new to, say, a crew, for example, as is such the case that you're probably new to this javelin, but you may have been around for a little bit, so that's absolutely a possibility. But if you were new, you definitely just kind of let it slide, because, you know, for all intents and purposes, you still have to earn your place to say things as well, just because of how the dynamics work. But if he's been with this crew for a while, he would absolutely tell them to go f themselves. And in my mind, you can kind of tell that he's somewhat new to this crew, just based on the fact that he doesn't fire off with any insults or quick rebuttals to them. So,
announcement following a whistle, the crew is ordered to alert, and this works very well. It's normal and good for the captain to personally take these announcements during a main watch. Silent times or second shift, this type of thing might come from the XO, but this is all part of team cohesion, trust building in the leadership, and in general, a good sense of purpose. Some may think that it sounds like you're drinking the Kool-Aid, but that order needs to come from the
yeah, probably because it's a military portrayal, which in the military, as much as people like to criticize the whole indoctrination aspect, if you don't have that, like drinking the Kool-Aid or indoctrinating, I would say that drinking the Kool-Aid or the indoctrination aspect of it would be important when you're trying to ensure that people are loyal to their crew, loyal to who they're serving. So that's just my perspective of it. I know that a lot of people like to throw shade on that mentality as far as, you know, the indoctrination, drinking of the Kool-Aid mentality, but you low-key kind of have to have that in order to be an effective crew. But
leader directly, and it has a highly positive effect on the team, especially if that leader is well liked. A good leader can make you more okay with risking your life to achieve their mission. The petty officer or PO in charge of the turret battery speaks like a senior NCO. And yes, this is a real thing, the
100%.
crusty worn officer, and it's a very nice touch. He's a little bit more blunt and a lot harder on the corporal, only offering praise in the smallest of doses. The PO was probably a turret gunner 10 years ago, and he would be very hard to impress. The turret gunners were told to stop talking over comms, and then one of them had to have the last word. The PO threatened a mild punishment if the chatter didn't stop. Again, all of this was great and made me feel like I was on board. Admiral,
that happens so often inside of the tank. It's insane. Like if the because we have a thing called the jump radio, and the jump radio can hear absolutely everything going on in the crew. When that thing is off and the tower isn't listening to the crew talk, there is constant banter. And when command pipes up on the radio and basically goes through a brief or what's going on, or gives you a reads from a script and tells you what's going to happen next or whatnot during trainings or whatnot, but you quickly come to and realize that you need to focus on what's going on at that point in time, so you don't miss out on important details that they're going to brief you on. So to see this kind of like shown in this way and in this style, in this scene is a big, for me at least, is a big plus for the overall perspective that you're trying to sell, which is the military perspective, right?
Bishop gave a rousing speech. He explained the danger in simple terms. He explained what the cost of failure would be, and then he proclaimed that there would be victory because they had no choice. Everyone would die unless they were successful. Really dramatic, but under the circumstances, the speech was good and would totally pump the troops up. We then cut over to Captain Wade and the Admiral, who are far back from the rest of the bridge crew, and they trade words and banter easily without using ranks or title. This is great and very believable. They are quite close in rank. There will be trust and respect, possibly even some friendship after working together for so long. The enemy forms up across the fleet, and Captain Wade puts the ship to weapons ready. He's the captain of the ship, and the Admiral is in charge of the fleet. Technically, by rank, the Admiral is the owner of the ship, but I was happy to see that the Admiral never issued orders directly to the bridge crew, passages to be done in this manner as to not undermine the captain's command. Bishop.
That was perfect. 100%. He's absolutely on point with that, because the Admiral of the fleet would disseminate his orders to the captains of each ship, right? So he would say, I want this to happen, and he would just basically tell them each what they're going to do in the shortest of terms, right? In the shortest of ways. And then those captains would go and tell the rest of their crew exactly what they're going to do. The Admiral would almost never, unless there was something going on, there was a breakdown in the command structure or a breakdown in the orders that weren't getting through, but he would almost never step over a captain in any way, shape, or form. He would allow that captain to lead his troops in every single way. So I completely agree. It's absolutely a very solid portrayal of what an admiral and captain, the dynamic between them would shake out to be. And I think that there was definitely the banter between them was great, because it does, as he said, kind of portray that they might even have like a friendship beyond the inner workings of, you know, their career fields of what they're doing. So it was good to see that it was just more like a, you know, you kind of see these types of little different character nuances between the two of them, which I loved. I thought that was well written, just how that portrayed both of them as characters.
Ship holds fire until the Vandal take the first shot, and this is a bit of a movie trope where the good guys wait to return fire. Normally, yeah, this is just stupid. You would never give any enemy any time to get themselves more sorted out. They're already a massive threat, and you're already going to lose a bunch of people to them. Why would you let them deploy another 20,000 fighters into nice, tidy wings? You would capitalize on any advantage to kill the enemy better or sooner. So as soon as they would be in range of your furthest weapon, the shots would be happening. It would look like the 4th of July all over, but I suppose that it works to build tension for the narrative. Wave after wave, you're to take out enemy ships from your...
That's absolutely true. If they are in range, because we don't know if they're in range or not, just based on, you know, the little, I guess, little nuances that here and there, but if they are in range right now, we in the military would absolutely take every single advantage that we'd have. It would be completely, for us, it's violence of action, right? And the minute that we have the opportunity to engage, unless someone tells us otherwise, it's going to be violence of action. Take every advantage that you can get. So a good leader would realize this in the moment and capitalize on that as much as possible. But it is possible. It is possible that they aren't in range, and that's why he's kind of just reinforcing that hold fire until his command. For all we know, that could be the case. So.
Your turret, and then we're back on the bridge for more story. The Admiral issues some commands to reposition parts of the fleet. The Scimitar is pushed to the front to test the enemy. He pushes another pair of ships to a different location, and this is what I spoke about before, where the team will follow orders even if they're being put into harm's way. Yep. Branches of the military are the only part of the entire government who abide by what is called unlimited liability. Firefighters, police, and such are all heroic on a daily basis, but the military oath comes with it a special clause. A firefighter will volunteer to run into a fire as part of their job, but they cannot be ordered into it. Members of the military, however, can be repeatedly ordered into situations which could result in their death. They volunteered for this, and it's seen as treason if you disobey. There are some limitations, however. And this little bit will be important later in the demo. Captain McLaren follows up the Admiral's speech with her own orders, and this is exactly what would happen to quickly bring the entire ship up to speed and explain what they are supposed to do, which is push forward to cover the flagship to protect Bishop. Quick and concise, and then your PO immediately reinforces that with your specific immediate mission as the turret gunner, which is to operate the turrets and kill all of the bad guys. The Vandals then fire what is basically a doomsday beam against a close-by capital ship. The crew on the bridge near the Admiral are obviously shocked, but in general remain cool. Captain Wade immediately issues an order for search and rescue to find any survivors. This is both a psychological and a practical order. The profession of arms will risk to achieve the mission, and I said troops will normally work better if their leader is generally liked, but knowing that when you risk yourself, the rest of the team will be willing to make every effort to come get you also goes a long way. That order from Captain Wade would have been broadcast across the entire command net, which would keep everyone updated that not only we had combat operations ongoing, but also to be aware of a SAR team operating near the lost ship. Captain Wade...
That goes into the dynamic that, you know, you're advertising it to the entire fleet, or brigade, or battalion, or however that's working out, however that's shaking out. But that you're telling everyone, hey, be advised, there's people in the area that are performing search and rescue. Don't fire on our own friendlies, because fratricide is a massive thing. Fratricide happens way too much when it comes to combat, and that's usually because there's a breakdown on communication. There is a little bit of people aren't as knowledgeable as they should be. For example, if you want to talk about Fort Bliss from, was it 2020? I think 2020, 2021. But I'm trying to remember exactly. But essentially, what happened was a lieutenant and his tank crew shot another Abrams tank, and it messed up the crew. I think it killed one other person. And then the driver was unscathed because he was in the hull of the tank, and the turret crew pretty much got effed up. The loader, I think, lost an arm because of the heat round that struck the tank. Gosh, I'm trying to remember exactly, but there was potential loss of life there, and definitely loss of limb. But it's things like that. Fratricide is a huge thing, and that's why we communicate everything going on, and that's why people need to be on point with their knowledge on their weapon system and their knowledge on enemy targets, being able to positively identify targets. So yeah, I completely agree. I think that he's absolutely right about this.
Then commented to Admiral Bishop that this thing is chewing us up, but now he adds the word sir to the end of his sentence because they're now standing in the middle of the junior officers on the bridge. We get to my first minor nitpick. Captain Wade is issuing an order to his weapons officer on the bridge of not only his ship, but the flagship with the Admiral immediately there. This would never usually be a junior officer's position. This is the weapons officer, and that person would be on board with providing solutions in this battle. It's that person's entire function on that ship and something that they would have done for years. So when Captain Wade orders the weapons officer for a firing solution on the King ship, the weapons officer, instead of doing what is ordered, offers a quick question back instead. Is that even going to have any effect or something like that? I like Captain Wade, and that person is well written and performed very well. Captain Wade is forced to take time to reinforce his order to that weapons officer. I loved the fact that Captain Wade never raised his voice and he took the time to speak, because at his rank and position, this is exactly what I would expect. This is the first and last freebie from the captain. It's critical that the captain maintains control over his frustration. The rest of your crew is looking to you to get them through the battle, and that would not be achieved if you're off yelling at people. I suppose I
absolutely agree with that assessment, because having a leader have a calm and cool head and able to control their emotions in the moment, even when somebody is being completely for lack of a better term, they're being completely insubordinate. It's amazing that the junior officer kind of got away with making that comment in the first place, in my opinion, because had he questioned a captain, not only a captain's, but an admiral's order, when it comes down to getting a firing solution, that would be immediately addressed in a very respectful way, but also a very stern way, at least in my experience, because of who's standing there. You have the commander of the fleet standing literally on the same bridge, and you're questioning your captain's orders. That would 100% not happen, and if it did happen, it would be immediately addressed. But he's right that the weapons officer would be a very experienced officer that would be providing solutions as well. They would be pretty confident in their skills that they would be able to actually do that. Not only that, but he has two very amazing leaders in his presence that in most situations whoever it is would have been pretty inspired or confident because of who was with him. Like, he's got an admiral who is a strategic genius, supposedly, according to the lore, and he's got a captain who's a very good leader that doesn't lose his cool, is surprisingly on point with how he addresses things. And granted, he should have done more when it comes to that junior officer replying like that, but he did not lose his cool, which says a lot about his character. So I was very impressed with Admiral Bishop's character and Captain Wade's character. They are two of the best written characters in this whole story, also including Captain McLaren. But they have a lot of really good, well-written characters. but the leadership from the two of them definitely stands out quite a bit.
Observation in this case is that that weapons officer would have or should have simply said, yes, sir. But because of this odd interaction, I suppose that we did get to see a little bit more of who Captain Wade is as a leader, a little bit of character development. So I understand. Admiral Bishop issues orders to drop shields the next time they're struck to make it seem as if they're more heavily damaged. Captain Wade then issues all of the individual orders to his bridge crew to achieve this, which is great positive control. Captain Wade, as I said, is written very well. His actions and effect on his
100%.
crew is that of a good leader who has earned his place on the flagship. The flagship and escort take several beatings. Captain Wade then prompts the Admiral for a revised plan. The Admiral orders to stay course and hit them again, which is classic. The saying is you can't lead from the back, and the Admiral knows that he's in the most tactically significant weapons platform in the fleet, the biggest guns and the best protection. Captain Wade relays his orders to the weapons officer, who takes a total brain shit at his station, saying, they're all gonna kill us, and then basically does nothing. This is the second time that...
Sorry, loser. God, that was embarrassing. As Noobifier pointed out, because the bed when it came to carrying out the
this officer has failed in the span of 3 minutes. Captain Wade pushes that person aside and fires the weapons himself and continues to occupy that
Move out of the way, I'll
station.
do it myself.
Big guns shooting on big ship is exactly what the Admiral ordered, and this weapons officer would have been immediately dressed down by the captain and be ordered to stand near the back of the bridge waiting for security. That person would have instantly been kicked out of their chair, removed from their post, and escorted by security, then put in a cell, and if everyone survived the battle, that person would have been investigated and would be court-martialed for putting an entire solar system at risk, probably jailed or reassigned. Everyone has a role, and the entire command...
Or worse, killed for being a traitor, because they refused to obey orders in a time of war. That is, of course, if that's the case in the UE Navy. So, as far as his fate after that, well, he's already sealed it, in my mind. So I completely agree with what Noobifier says.
Command structure demands orders to be executed without hesitation. Captain Wade continues to man the weapons for the remainder of the battle, leaving the weapons officer to feel like a total knob in his stupid blue chair, which was also a satisfying end state for him and for me. We got the main attack from Squadron 42, led by Henry Cavill's character. All of this dialogue was on point. The plan evolved as the situation changed. The Retaliator pilot commented that their torpedoes would probably have minimal effect on the target. The team then adjusted on the fly and were ultimately successful. The Kingship fired its Doomsday weapon on the Admiral's flagship, taking out a huge chunk of the side, and I love that the Admiral asked for a status report and Captain Wade started talking about their ship's status. The Admiral interrupted him and said, "No, I want to know the status of the Kingship." This is the difference of perspective as you go up in rank. The captain would be focused on ship, crew, and mission, but the Admiral is playing with a completely different set of requirements. He's trying to save the solar system, so yeah, his focus would be more focused on inflicting maximum damage, and this little bit made me smile. Captain Wade reported that the shields on the flagship were in fact down, and that shitty weasel of a weapons officer had the balls and audacity to cheer and celebrate from his stupid blue chair. This would have been a great opportunity for Captain Wade to sort this officer out and remind him of how much shit he was actually in. All the captain would need to do is make direct eye contact and say nothing. You can see how insubordination is really built into a soldier's brain, right? So we're going to move on. The Admiral told the bridge crew...
That was sarcasm for anybody who's wondering. Insubordination is not inherently built in most service members. So it was weird that it was kind of portrayed that he was more likely to disobey orders than to just follow them to the letter.
To settle down and focus on the battle, the Vandal make a convincing counterattack and maximize the confusion by performing some boarding operations. The Kingship makes a run to ram the flagship, and it's unavoidable, and that gives the Admiral an opportunity to tell the bridge crew they can evacuate or volunteer to remain. And this is good for the narrative as it reinforces how likely it is that they'll be dead. but he would probably never issue this order. Unlimited liability is what we all sign up for, as I explained, and he actually needs 100% of what's left of his ship and as much of his crew as he can get. Captain Wade continues to man the weapons station, leaving the weapons officer to continue to feel useless off to the side, and this is why usually that person would be escorted to jail, even in a full-blown battle. With everything everywhere blowing up, we're then transported back to our player, the turret gunner. The ship is toast. People are dead or dying, and it's up to you to repel a Vandal boarding party. The sequence is really good, and it makes you fear and respect the Vandal. For the next 20 minutes, you fight them, you fight some fires, you fight space, you fight zero-G push-pull mechanics, and then you arrive at the bridge. The only person on the bridge is your captain, Captain McLaren, and she has the drop on you with a fully loaded SMG. Realizing that you're part of the crew, she explains, "I thought I was the only one left," and then casually says, "Look, I need you to help with something. The ship has no power. The captain will restore the power and you will pilot the ship." This little bit of loose dialogue removed me and my immersion a little bit, and it reminds me that I was in Hollywood and not on an actual ship. The captain of the ship is convinced that her entire crew is dead and that the ship is a total loss. There's no way her guard would be down and that her tone to a corporal would be so casual. She is clearly not given up. Years of service would kick in. Her spoken words would be orders directed to achieve what needs to be done. Her sentences would have all ended with the word corporal, and this is not a really big deal, but I do feel that the writing somewhat fails the actor. By changing this a little bit, it would have seemed more authentic. The bridge is about to be attacked by an 8-foot-tall assault party. The captain receives a direct call from the admiral, questioning them and ordering them to fall back as ordered.
So I kind of disagree in some ways, that because we saw earlier that when she was talking to our character, that she kind of, in a few ways, identified very similarly to him, and how he was applying for Flight Academy, how she got rejected a few times too. Yes, I do think that she would have, most of the sentences would have ended in corporal, but it kind of paints a picture that she thought she was alone, so when she was startled by him, it was kind of a, oh, it's this guy. I talked to him earlier. Because a captain knows their crew. Almost every single one of them. And if they don't, well, it's just a bad captain, no offense. If you are. But a good captain knows all of their crew. And they make it a point to understand, in a few ways at least, kind of who they are as a person. So when she connected to our character down in the observation lounge, it kind of painted a picture that she's a little bit more personable with him in some ways, because she identifies very closely to him in some ways. So, but in my experience with my first commander and I were pretty much close to the same age, and we both had I think the same amount of kids at that point in time, but he was very personable with me. He talked to me like a normal person. But when it came down to orders being carried out, absolutely 100%, he'd be straight to the point of, like, you know, hey, last name, get this done right away. And that definitely would have been the case if the commander gave me an order. 100% I would say yes sir and get it done. But kind of rambling a little bit, apologize. But absolutely, that she would snap to pretty quick and be like, "Corporal, over here, I need your help." She'd just kind of walk him through exactly what they're going to do. But she seemed like she was going to approach it a little bit more in a personal way, I guess. Yeah, I kind of disagree, but I also agree with some of the things that he says. So
she quickly explains how totally effed up the ship is, how everyone is dead, and that she plans to crash all 10 million tons of it into the enemy. The admiral reluctantly accepts, but he does reinforce that he needs them to make every effort to get to an escape pod. And then he simply uses her first name, saying Rachel. This was so powerful. By breaking rank, he gets her full attention immediately. this break in character over the radio would be very jarring for her. It would stick and linger in her brain, reinforcing how important her survival is to him. Bishop is written and acted so well, and this super tiny detail fully locked me into the story. Captain McLaren then explains her goals to your character and issues you a new set of tasks, which is to take the SMG and defend her so that she can achieve her goals. She ends with "Go now," which is a much better and more believable end to an interaction. The shit has totally hit the fan and the bridge is assaulted. Your captain takes a fatal wound and passes a final order over to you to get to the escape pod. Your character in this case chooses to disobey, and you both make it into an escape pod with seconds to spare, and then we fade to black. So, overall, really good. Thoughtful and deliberate script. Characters that mostly act and speak as expected in the situation, and I guess I'm still pretty upset with that weapons officer. He should have been sorted out on the spot and launched into a prison cell somewhere. Some of the dialogue for Captain McLaren should have been a little bit tighter, but I think that Gillian Anderson is a great actor and provided a great strong lead performance. As I come to the end, we will say that Hollywood seems to be hit or miss lately. The new Penguin show, for example, on HBO is a great example of great writing combined with a great story executed by great talent. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, Disney has had trouble hiring writers who understand the basic building blocks of good storytelling. And that's as far as I'm going to go into that. If the rest of Squadron 42 is constructed with this level of care in the story, then I'm very happy and super excited to enjoy it for at least a couple playthroughs. Following the development of these two games over the years is a roller coaster of emotions, but at least this very important aspect receives a gold star and chef's kiss seal of approval from me. Comment your comments in the comments. If you would like to do a react to this video, please feel free. I will never copy strike any other content creator ever. We should all be allowed and safe to explore content in our own way. Please share this and continue to watch the channel from time to time. I hope you enjoyed it. Fly safe.
Honestly, he was on point. Obviously, of course, he would be on point because he was in the Canadian Army for 30 years, so the man's got a lot of experience with that. But I have to agree with his sentiments at the end that if the prologue is any indication on the level of writing and when it comes to it being militarily correct in many ways and the military portrayal being what it is, I think it will make for a very, very good single player campaign. I think it will make for a very good game. Obviously, we haven't seen the entirety of the gameplay, but if the writing and the story, which is what single players are about, for me anyway, if the writing and the story is on point, then I think it will be very successful. Because the gameplay in Star Citizen now is, if you think about it, the core of the gameplay is really entertaining. But obviously with single players, you can kind of add more into it easily without having to worry about the rest of it, like servers and server population, etc. But yeah, I think that when the game comes out, it will be a very good game. I hope that it's successful enough that people flock to it in many ways so that they get to experience it. But as far as it goes, the prologue paints a picture of how I think the game will be amazing, in my opinion. But obviously, we've only seen the prologue, so we'll have to wait and see when we get the rest of the game. In hopefully 14 to 24 months. So I say 14 because that's technically 2026, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I appreciate him doing this video, and he was on point for this entire review. And I loved his comments, and I completely agree that with many of his perspectives. So I also thank you very much, Noobifier, for allowing people to react to this video. And you're right, it is important that we have this type of dialogue in between content creators with Star Citizen, and it's nice when that kind of happens naturally without you really worrying about it. But it is unfortunate to see when people are overly protective of their channels and they copyright strike people just because they don't want people to react to their videos. And I think that's silly. I honestly think that's silly. You'll have a lot more people interacting with your channel if another channel reacts to yours and interacts with yours. So we work well together. But hey, if you want to separate yourself and be that channel, go for it. But Noobifier, if you're watching this, I appreciate the video. Thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome to react to, and it was definitely nice to see your perspective with a lot of this, and I absolutely love it. So thank you for giving the community such amazing content and, you know, providing news in a very concise way that doesn't waste the time of the viewer, and I love that. I've always loved Noobifier's channel, and thanks for your hard work, man. I really appreciate it. But I enjoyed this. I want to do more of this in the future. But if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure to check out the rest of my videos on the channel. You can check out my last base building video on player-built stations. I really appreciate you all watching this video. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future updates. And as always, if you guys want to see more of my videos, you can click on the next video at the end of screen. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the verse. Havoc out.